drug trafficking, that's one more of those areas of concern. It's time for the United States of America to take responsibility for the pain and suffering and torture and murder that's going on throughout Latin America.
Maybe one of the reasons that Mitt Romney is so concerned with the drug wars taking place just south of the American border is that it affects him and his family personally. Hi, I'm Shane Smith, and we're here at the Vice headquarters in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. Now, Williamsburg is ground zero for hipsters, which means it's also ground zero for partying, which means it's ground zero for cocaine. Now, Vice has talked a lot about cocaine over the years. In fact, one of our magazine covers featured a mirror with a big line of coke chopped up on it. But recently, we followed a story that made us think twice about our historical fascination with coke. And it has to do with Mormons, as in Mitt Romney's family-type Mormons, Mexican drug cartels, polygamy, kidnapping, cocaine, and finally, murder. Now, it's a freaky, freaky story, and it's taking place just south of the US border, so we went to check it out firsthand to see what was going on. We just passed through from El Paso in Texas, which is actually one of the safest cities in America, into Juarez, Mexico, which is actually one of the most dangerous cities in the world. In fact, it's the most dangerous city in the world for journalists. And we're driving with a camera rolling, which is, in retrospect, very fucking stupid. People always ask me what the most dangerous place I've ever been to is. When I say Mexico, they're a bit flummoxed. They say, Mexico, I've been to Mexico, I've been to Cancun, Joe's tequila foam party and boom boom room. But this Mexico, here in Juarez, is the Mexico run by the narco lords. They don't care about what you're shooting. They don't walk up and say, hey, what's that camera for? They just see a camera and go, that can't be good, and bam. Now, the drug lords that rule northern Mexico are like most mafia around the world. They're very wealthy, and they're insanely ruthless. But the thing that sets the Mexican cartels apart from the other mobs is their seemingly profound love of murder. They put other crime syndicates to shame with the sheer scale of their killing, not to mention the gruesome, eye-catching way they present their murders with a kind of evil inventiveness. And it's not just traditional gang-on-gang violence either. The cartels kill anyone and everyone in their way. Rivals, witnesses, journalists, politicians, and police are all targets. And rather than hiding the bodies like most criminals, they actually want you to see them, and they want you to know exactly who did it. In fact, the war on drugs in Mexico is so violent that its body count is almost 10 times that of American soldiers killed in the real wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. And in a country where it's supposedly illegal to own guns, the narcos are armed to the teeth with state-of-the-art weaponry, 90% of which are smuggled in from the United States, which is something we got to see firsthand as soon as we arrived in Juarez.
Ahí en este edificio tenemos el laboratorio de balística, en la que se albergan pues la gran cantidad de evidencia que se ha recolectado, ¿no? A través de...
We came in here and we saw this huge bunker, and we're like, oh, this is where they hold all the guns and all the drugs and everything in this big, massive concrete bunker. And they're like, no, the drugs and the guns are here in the trucks. That's a nightclub called the Sphinx. So last night, the police caught these guys trying to smuggle in 268,000 rounds of ammunition in a truck with Oklahoma plates. It was driven by a guy from Dallas. Over 250,000 rounds of ammunition. This is the kind of firepower that they have. This is a .30 caliber Browning, which shoots super fast and can shoot through armored cars. And then they have this anti-aircraft 50 cal. Can I pick it up?
No, you can't touch that.
Shit, I did. I put my finger on it. I'm gonna get in trouble. They just confiscated these weapons, and I touched the 50 cal, and they haven't dusted them for prints yet. So now my prints are on a murder weapon. Not good.
Todas tienen relación con los diferentes delitos que se cometen, principalmente el homicidio.
These look like they're from America. America, America, America. All the guns are from America. They're all homicides, and they've tested them out?
Sí, todas. Principalmente nada más apuntarle para abajo, por favor.
Oh, sorry. It was loud. It smells very strong. Holy Jesus. I know this doesn't look like crazy, but you can smell, wow, it's a lot of drugs. drugs and flak jackets. So this is sort of a rustic type of smuggling. They call it a burrero, which is like a donkey, and they just walk through the desert with the pot on their back. So the market for the drugs is America, the market for the weapons is here in Mexico, and they go like this. But when you look at this, like 50 cals, assault rifles, military grade machine guns, you realize, okay, how do the police fight them, let alone regular people, let alone Mormons who aren't allowed to own guns? It's crazy. So we're about 200 miles south of Juarez now, and we're out in the middle of nowhere. This is like the narco superhighway. There's actually 300 different smuggling trails right through here. There's no big wall or anything. You can just walk off into the desert with your pack full of cocaine. And then all of a sudden, coke's in Williamsburg and hipsters are doing coke. As you're out here, it kind of dawns on you that there's nowhere to go. Like if something happens or if someone even chases us, where are we gonna run to? Because you can't trust the police, especially can't trust the local police because they're all corrupt. So basically right now, it's a straight shot to the Mormons, their guns, and their God.
My dad had been born in Mexico, and his family had to leave during the Mexican Revolution. He had big dreams. We were Mormons, and growing up in Michigan, that might have seemed unusual or out of place, but I really don't remember it that way. My friends cared more about what sports teams we followed than what church we went to.
So we're on our way down here to Colonial Juarez, which is in northern Mexico in Chihuahua State. A lot of people may know that Romney and his family are actually from here. His father was actually born here in a Mormon colony. But maybe what they don't know is that these Mormon colonies are still here, and they're actually fighting the narco cartels, the drug cartels that run this whole region. They're standing up and they're fighting the kidnapping and the violence and the crime. So the question is, what are the Mormons doing down in Mexico in the first place? Mormons originally came down to Mexico in the late 1800s after the American government forced the Mormon church to ban polygamy. The problem with this is that Joseph Smith, the prophet of the religion, held that polygamy was actually a divine commandment. He believed that you can only reach the highest level of the celestial kingdom, or heaven, if you are actually a partner in a plural marriage. So basically, the more wives you had, the better heaven would be. And rather than give up their place in heaven, many moved down to Mexico to continue to practice polygamy and thereby assure their place in the afterlife. Here, in the seclusion of the Mexican desert, they could practice all the standard Mormon rituals like baptizing the dead or wearing magic underwear, but also the more controversial plural marriage, or, as we were soon to find out, the outright insane practice of blood atonement. So after about 5 hours of some very nervous driving and a couple of very thorough stops at military checkpoints, not to mention 2 stops at drive-through liquor stores to calm our very jangly nerves, we finally arrived at the Mormon Promised Land. We left Juarez, which is very dirty and poor and very druggy. And then all of a sudden you come over this hill and there's orchards and golf courses. The streets are laid out nice. They've got nice schools. Kids are playing baseball and there's angels. And it's kind of like, we've come to God's country because it's beautiful here and they obviously have money. So this is why they're being targeted by the narcos and this is why they have to fight back. So now we're going to go meet some Mormons who are actually fighting the narco cartels. This is Brent LeBaron's farm. They are sort of famously secretive about their weapons, their fighting, because they don't want to be targeted anymore by the cartels. But we're going to go meet him and see if he'll show us around. Brent?
Yeah, how's it going?
Shane Smith.
Brent LeBaron, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. How you doing?
I'm very, very well.
This is your farm?
This is my farm. We farm chili and a little bit of wheat. All depends the time of the season.
We've heard that the LeBaron family, the LeBaron colony, has sort of been standing up to some of the narco cartels.
Yeah, we've had a few run-ins with them. Don't like to say too much about it, but I'd love to show you around. Let's go.
Let's do it. Now, I didn't know what to expect when I first met Brent. And when I did, he seemed to me more American than most Americans. In fact, I wouldn't have been surprised if he told me he played linebacker for Alabama. But when he started to give me the tour around the cemetery, I realized that his story was anything but normal.
This is a graveyard where my grandfather and great-grandfather are buried. The original story is they come down for the cause of plural marriage to continue it.
Right.
You know, Mexico allowed it.
So they wanted to continue polygamy.
Yes, my great-grandfather, being a fundamentalist, he broke away from the Mormon church because he had 2 wives. That's when he went to establish Colonial LeBaron. They established 5 or 6 colonies down here
The colony would be like a family.
with a few families.
Right. And then your grandfather had 10 wives.
Yes, had children by 8 of those 10, but yes.
And how many grandkids did he have?
Between grandkids and great-grandkids, they're probably pushing the 400 mark right now.
Wow. All named LeBaron.
All named LeBaron.
Now, having more than 400 grandchildren might seem extreme to some, but it's nothing compared to the shit that Brent's Uncle Ervil got up to. He was a straight-up fucking lunatic. Now, Ervil not only had 13 wives and over 50 children, but he also used his own family, including his own kids, as assassins. Dubbed the Mormon Manson, Ervil and his family were suspects in over 40 murders.
Joel LeBaron was killed by his own brother, Ervil, because of blood atonement.
Yes. Well, Ervil tried to take over the church and he started claiming blood atonement, the right to kill in the name of God. If you oppose him, he has the right to kill you.
Right.
Once Ervil snapped, he just went on a killing spree. He had his daughters killed, his wives killed, his sons killed, and it just went from there. I mean, he went haywire.
So Ervil goes on this killing spree across Mexico and the United States, and at one point the Secret Service is after him because he threatens to kill President Carter. They finally captured Ervil in 1979 and sent him to prison, and all the killing stops, right? Wrong.
And then after he dies in jail, people keep on killing for him. He killed up to 25 people after he died because he left a sort of hit list, and they kept killing.
They kept killing, yes, they did.
Now, as Brent is telling me all this, I had to keep in mind that this blood atonement killing spree isn't taking place in the 1880s or anything. This is all happening in the 1980s.
My grandfather ran from him for probably 10 years.
Wow.
I mean, he chased my grandpa clear to Nicaragua.
Your great uncle was trying to kill your grandfather.
Verlin M. LeBaron died in a car accident right out of Mexico City. A lot of people have been skeptical that actually Ervil had something to do with it. And his last recorded words were, "Brother, it looks like we've been ran off the road."
That's some crazy shit.
Yeah. That's just a modern day Cain and Abel here.
Do you think that that's one of the reasons why, because you had this sort of familial civil war, you got tighter as a family, so when the narcos came after your family, you were sort of tougher?
Oh, definitely, everyone was a watchman.
Now, what he's saying here is that because of Ervil, everyone in the LeBaron clan watched out for everyone else. So when the cartels kidnapped one of their own, they were ready. Eric LeBaron was only 16 when he was abducted and held for $1 million ransom.
You didn't pay the ransom.
We didn't pay the ransom.
Right. Even if you could get the money and paid it, they're just going to keep doing it.
Just going to keep coming and keep doing it.
They'll just use the money to buy more guns and get more powerful.
Exactly. If we don't sever the head off this monster right now, it's just going to get worse. We had to go to the government and say, hey, you won't allow us to bear arms,
Right.
but you're supposed to protect us.
The protest forced the government to put pressure on the kidnappers, and as is quite rare in these situations, Eric was returned unharmed after paying no ransom. However, it also served to enrage the local drug lord named El Raquin, who only lived 8 miles down the road from Colonial LeBaron. Now, this is a narco who loves drugs so much that he actually massacred 18 people trying to get off the stuff at a drug rehab center. And now, he's after the LeBarons.
2 more Americans dead as a result of the violence in Mexico. Those victims gunned down this week by drug cartel killers.
We've done a lot of stories about polygamy and a lot of stories about Mexican drug cartel violence, but we never imagined the 2 topics would mesh like this in a very tragic way.
The freeing of one of their own by the LeBarons protesting in Chihuahua had sent a message to the narcos. They weren't going to back down, they weren't going to submit, they were going to fight. But it didn't take El Raquin long to send a message right back.
So yeah, this is my cousin Benjamin's home.
Right.
This Riquin guy actually ordered the hit on him
Yeah.
because of the stand we took.
He was a serious criminal. I mean, famously, he got caught on the American side of the border, dressed as Mexican military, had a shootout with the border guards, and then came back here.
Yeah,
So they came here to his house.
yeah. He showed up with 15, 20 guys, 2, 3 trucks, pickups. Benjamin and his family were sleeping in the house when these guys come surround the house, breaking down his door, ended up breaking pretty much most of his windows out. There's still, marks on the door where they're trying to bash in with guns, whatever they had.
Right.
Those are sledgehammer marks.
Yeah.
At that point, they had threatened his family with a hand grenade
So they said they'd blow up the family with a grenade unless he surrendered.
unless he opened the door. And so he opened the door. At that point, his brother-in-law Luis come over to see what was going on. He literally showed up in sandals. He came to the rescue. He was an innocent bystander
So he came here barefoot with no gun
at all.
against guys who were armed with machine guns and grenades.
Yes. But they beat him and picked him and Benjamin up and took them about 2 miles down the road here and shot them both and left them on the side of the road.
So because Elder Keene put the hit out on Benjamin, it put enough domestic pressure here that they would offer him up to the American authorities for the Mexican incident where he was dressed as the military with the border police.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Very much so, yeah, because I don't think they had enough here to hold him here, so they actually shipped him to the U.S.
Right.
And although Elder Keene was extradited to America for his firefights with the Border Patrol, none of the other 20-plus men involved in this double homicide have ever been convicted. But the LeBarons wouldn't quit. In fact, Julian LeBaron, Benjamin's brother, has since taken up his dead sibling's mantle of activism.
Shane, nice to meet you.
The main thing is we want to be respected.
Right.
And in Mexico, nobody's respected. We're not respected by the criminals, and we're not respected by the government. We taped a big sign right here that said, this is for messing with Chapo Guzman's people or some stupid shit. I don't remember what it was. And that's where they found him. They shot him 4 times in the head each.
Shit.
I think that most of us felt really thankful that we found him, because sometimes they'll take him and torture him to death.
Right.
People from our neighboring communities participated in this murder. Those are some of the people that are involved with this shit.
Really? Those guys are bad boys.
I don't know if they are, but the truck that they loaded up, it is exactly the same
Really?
truck, the same color, identical.
Jesus Christ. I thought you guys were friends.
To them, it's funny. 10 children under the age of 7 were left orphans when that happened that night. My brother and his brother-in-law, they were some of the most valuable people in our community. This can never be acceptable.
Right.
Never. Because if this is acceptable, there's no future left.
Right.
The community initially, what we said is, for every person they kill from our community, we'll kill 10 of them because we know who they are.
Right.
And then we said, well, that's not a solution, because then you become just like them.
Yeah.
So the sun was going down, it was getting a little bit late, and the LeBarons told us that we should get back to our hotel before it got dark.
We are going to a hotel that's actually in the LeBaron colony, which hopefully will be a little bit safer. But after you hear stories like that, you just can't believe, the fear of violence that these people live under every day. It makes you paranoid to hear stories like that. So we're going to go to our hotel and lock ourselves in. This is a shrine to Jesus Malverde, who's the patron saint of drug smugglers, narcos. So we're gonna light a candle. This is freaking me out because I'm very superstitious. That's him there, patron saint of the drug dealers. They all come in here, they say a prayer, they write a prayer on here, and they say, please let me get across the border with my drugs. Literally, religion about drug dealers.
Now, the whole time I was hanging out with the LeBarons, I found myself wondering, how do you actually protect yourself against narco lords who employ whole armies of assassins whose sole job is to kill their rivals? Well, the LeBarons started by adopting military-style tactics and setting up checkpoints, roadblocks, and watchtowers.
We hit a real big low, you know, when they killed Benjamin. It was a real big blow to our entire community.
Right.
I was really close to Benjamin, knew him really well.
After Benjamin was killed, you've set up your own community watch, your own night watch, and then you built this up, and you have people watching every night.
Every night. So
What are you watching for?
Pretty much, you know, suspicious vehicles. We pretty much know everybody.
Sure.
And so if it looks like a vehicle I've never seen before, then it was getting checked.
This watch hut looks down on one of the main drug trafficking roads.
One of them, yeah.
Yeah. The only people here with weapons are the criminals.
Pretty
the
much.
Drug cartels.
Rumor got out that we had high-powered rifles
Like
and
snipers,
and
yeah.
whatnot.
And 50 cows up here and stuff.
Well, you know how rumors can spread, you know, which was a benefit for us.
Yeah, it's good.
You know,
It's a good rumor.
It was a really good rumor for us, you know. I believe that the watchtower is one of the key points to, you know, keeping the bad guys away from our town.
Right.
Also, the feds and the military are in our town. This is their base. We actually had a roadblock to where there was one way in and one way out.
So you have barricades, checkpoints, and watchtowers.
Yeah. I would say our valley right here is quite a bit safer than a lot of areas.
Casas Grandes, which is about 30 minutes away, they're still having kidnappings and stuff there.
Here and there. Before, it was literally 2-3 a week.
Wow. That's a lot.
That's a lot, yeah. So we were never pinpointing drug cartels or anything else, but when it came to them now kidnapping our family members, that's what we took a stand against. When it comes to protecting our family, if we have to die doing it, we're going to.
So the LeBarons made their colony into a little fortress using the same counter-terrorist techniques that the US Army uses in Iraq and Afghanistan. And because of it, the killings and the kidnappings in the Mormon areas actually died down. But roadblocks and security checkpoints are only going to get you so far. At some point, if you're fighting the narcos, you're going to need guns.
If Benjamin was taken by a bunch of guys with weapons, they were unarmed, how are you supposed to defend yourself?
Well, there's really no law in Mexico that gives you the right to bear arms. Legally, the quickest and best way is through a gun club.
Now in Mexico, it's nearly impossible to own a gun. In fact, one of the only legal ways to do so is to go through the extremely difficult process of starting a gun club or a shooting range.
Why don't you have your own shooting club in Colonial LeBaron?
Our ex-mayor wouldn't sign the papers we needed. We had all the first members on a list. Well, he turns around and shows it to our bad boy buddies.
You're trying to arm yourselves, and he's working for the cartels, so you can't arm yourself.
Exactly. Pretty much.
And where is he now?
He's in prison.
There's 15 million illegal assault rifles estimated in Mexico. I mean, the thing is, if you have 20 guys with assault rifles, maybe I'm gonna go for one of those turkeys. Oh yeah, I'm gonna get one of them.
So the LeBarons finally decided that if it continued to be illegal to own weapons, which meant criminals were the only ones that had guns, that it was time to change the law. Alex LeBaron, who's now a congressman, is determined to protect his colony from the cartels, no matter what it takes, even if it means a shootout with the Mexican military.
They went into our farm. We thought they were criminals. We shot one of them. It was a very sad incident, but it gained a lot of respect for us.
You outshot the military.
We outshot the military. We got phone calls from heads of the criminal organizations after that incident.
Right.
And they told us they were proud of us to some degree. People in drug organizations, and including the same military, know that we have weapons because we've been saying it.
Sure.
We have illegal weapons in our community.
Yeah.
Come in and find them if you want. We buy them in the States. We know we traffic them illegally. That's the only way to defend yourself in this country. In order to get access to a weapon here in our country, it would cost you up to $10,000, and that wouldn't even be through a legal way.
So the majority of the weapons being used by the narcos are coming from America.
Absolutely.
And the money is coming from America.
Absolutely. I think the Americans need to really understand that any policies that are implemented in the United States impact our country.
So the money for all these guns is coming from America. The guns themselves come from America. The coke is being sold in America, but the war is being fought in Mexico. And considering 1,300 people were killed in the region just this past August alone, in northern Mexico, self-defense has truly become a matter of life and death.
In the last while, it's actually calmed down quite a bit. I haven't heard of that many kidnappings lately. You know, usually it was like, boom, every other day. Oh my goodness, there's another kidnapping. You know, Joneses got kidnapped, like Romney got kidnapped, or it's just someone you affiliated with.
Now, it's hard to picture a place that's so fucked up that not that many kidnappings is a sign that things are going well. But in northern Mexico, everything is relative. The sobering reality of it is, in Mexico in 2011, there were 49 kidnappings a day.
Things have actually kind of calmed down enough to where they actually have, parties and rodeos and whatnot.
So they're having this rodeo because a dude lost his leg?
Yeah, one of the cowboys lost his leg and they're doing a benefit for him.
Right. One of the things that we were worried about before we came here was people knowing that we were here, people knowing that we were shooting. And now we're in front of the whole town.
There you go.
In a town where they used to have 3 or 4 kidnappings a week. And we're just parading in front of everyone with a camera going, turn the music off everywhere. They've just announced to the whole town that we're here shooting in the most dangerous town in Chihuahua. I'm just gonna get drunk. Let's put that on.
Now, hanging out with the LeBarons and play acting as a cowpoke relaxed us a little bit, as did the booze.
I'd like to say cheers to the LeBaron family because you guys fucking rock.
To the LeBaron family.
LeBaron family. Good times, good friends.
Hello.
Cheers, 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 cheers. Here we go, here we go. Get everybody over here. Like we're all in it together. Here we go.
We had a nice lunch, got a bit drunk, and sang some songs together. It was fun. After drinking for a bit with Brent, he suggested we go on a ride-along on the nightly patrol of the LeBaron colony. Now, I was picturing a pickup truck with a CB and a couple of good old boys in the back, but what we got instead was some heavy, heavy business.
What are we doing right now?
So we're just gonna take on a routine route that they normally take, and then they'll probably do a security checkpoint for a little while and maybe check some suspicious vehicles or something. These guys use our town as a base because they trust everyone here.
One of the things that's pretty crazy is you're driving through with pickup trucks with 4 armed guards in the back and 2 guys in the front, all with machine guns, for a town of 1,200 people. So shit is serious.
So the federales kept stopping people, and they didn't seem to mind us riding along with them until they roadblocked the actual highway, which, remember, is one of the main drug routes into America.
The cops are going to stop some cars and look for some drugs.
Then as the sun was going down, they warned us that we should leave because it was very dangerous to even be seen with them. Because as it turned out, riding around with them on the back roads was one thing, but stopping actual drug runners on the highway was another.
Want a beer?
Back at the hotel, we realized that our fun, boozy afternoon had some unforeseen consequences.
About an hour ago, a black pickup sort of drove by really slowly and then kind of sped off.
Black trucks, like the ones Julian had pointed out earlier, had actually stopped, taken pictures, and checked us out. And all of a sudden, our LeBaron run around town drunk time didn't seem so smart anymore.
All right, so we have to leave now because we shot today at the rodeo, and then we did a drive-by with the cops, so everybody in town knows that we're here. And then we've just had a black truck with black windows stop, pull up, check us out, and then drive off. And a black truck, I just found out, came by and took pictures of us before I got here. So we have to go to another hotel that we've arranged, which is crazy.
So we took off, and when we called Brent to tell him we had left, I half expected him to say, hey, you're overreacting, it's nothing. But in actual fact, when he heard the story, he said, oh yeah, you should get the fuck out of Dodge. Now, because colonial LeBaron is so close to the American border, they're totally affected by our immigration policy and, of course, our war on drugs. If America sneezes, Mexico catches cold. And because of this, they're extremely interested in American political policy.
You have narco cartels, you have a drug route, you have illegal immigration. So all these problems, who do you think should be the next president of the United States?
Mitt Romney has a great policy.
Now, are you just saying that because you're Mormon-ish?
His ties, his people, his family lives right across the mountain here. You should probably meet him.
Now, when Brent says his family, he means presidential candidate Mitt Romney's family. Now, we knew that his father, George Romney, had been born into a Mormon colony in Mexico, but not that they still had an active Romney colony here in Chihuahua.
So the Romneys still live here,
Yeah.
across the valley.
Yep, there's some great guys, you know, just really like them, golf with them quite often, and just some really cool guys.
Yeah.
So we went across the valley to check them out.
Nine holes with 2 par 5s and two par 3s, and the rest are 4s. Pretty nice greens, huh?
Beautiful. How did this golf course start?
We just got a group together that liked to play golf and, you know, copied other golf courses, put in the sprinkling system.
Right.
When the violence started, we lost quite a few members. Just like in Casas Grandes, a lot of people moved out.
You play here with some of the LeBarons from Colonial LeBaron?
Yeah, some of the guys come over here and play.
And who's better, the LeBarons or the Romneys?
The LeBarons. I don't know what they're eating over there, but...
So how long have the Romneys been here?
In 1885, my great-grandfather, Miles Park Romney, was one of the original people that came here. Mitt is a relative. He's a second cousin.
So his dad was born in Chihuahua?
He was born in Colonia de Blanc, about 15 miles from here.
Okay.
Their family left and they stayed in the United States. They didn't come back.
Right.
You know, I remember his father ran for President of the United States in '68, or at least he was a candidate. His citizenship was questioned.
Right.
Because he was born here in Mexico, but he was born of American parents.
And do you think that this craziness around the run-up to the election, is that bringing too much attention? Or?
I think one of the reasons it's brought a lot of attention to here is because of Mitt's position on illegal immigration.
Right.
Now, what's ironic about this is that Mitt Romney, whose father was born in Mexico and would be considered the poster child of the DREAM Act, actually has one of the staunchest views on immigration in his already conservative Republican Party.
And I've indicated I would veto the DREAM Act if provisions included that people who are here illegally, if they go to school here long enough, get a degree here, that they can become permanent residents. I think that's a mistake.
Now, it seems a bit weird for a person who's essentially a first-generation immigrant to have such harsh views on immigration. It's kind of like, methinks thou dost protest too much kind of deal. And his own cousin Kelly, who although he supports Mitt for president, thinks that his position on immigration is wrong.
I think he needs to change.
Right.
Being born and raised in Mexico, and especially since NAFTA, I think that the United States is partly responsible for the increase in illegal immigration have.
Right. So America makes policy, then all of a sudden northern Mexico gets all screwed up.
That's right. Give amnesty to those that are out there that are working legitimately and have a job. Come up with a guest worker program, and let these people go out there and work and then come home and take care of their family. Because basically they're starving to death here in Mexico.
In fact, it's so bad that for many people, there's only really two options. One, sneak into America, or two, work for the cartels. You know, didn't some farmers go up from the farms and go into the mountains and start growing drugs?
But yeah, a lot of them have gone into the mountain areas and they grow drugs where.
And now we're sitting here going, okay, well, what are we going to do?
What are we going to do? Exactly. You know, I wish Mitt would make contact with us, and
yeah.
I really think that we could help him.
And as I would later realize, contacting the Mexican side of his family would probably be the last thing that Mitt Romney would do.
I think marijuana should not be legal in this country. I believe it's a gateway drug to other drug violations. The use of illegal drugs in this country is leading to terrible consequences.
Now, we all know Mitt Romney's stance on drugs, but it was interesting to hear Kelly's thoughts on the drug war, considering it affects him every day.
To me, this used to be the most peaceful place in the world.
Right.
Yeah, man, I used to let my kids go to Nuevo Casas Grandes, go to the shows, go to dances, go to parties.
Yeah.
But now you keep close watch. And it all has to do with the drug violence that has started. You know, when they started the war on drugs, the violence just escalated. Most of the problems that we have around here are drug-related, you know, and there's been some kidnappings and some killings from drug-related things, you know.
Right. Have there ever been any Romneys kidnapped?
Yeah, my brother was kidnapped 3 years ago in May. I think they kept him for 2 days, took him to a cave up in the mountains. They paid a small ransom, it wasn't a lot, and they were mainly punks, they weren't really professionals.
Right. And most of the weapons that are here in Mexico are illegal weapons, and
Yes.
most of those illegal weapons are coming from the States.
Yes. Fast and Furious, I'm sure you've heard about that.
Now, the Fast and the Furious scandal he's talking about refers to a case where the American government gave thousands of guns to the cartels in order to track them. Then, they proceeded to lose track of them until they surfaced again in the murder cases of American agents.
What, they think they were going to be able to keep control of them or keep track of them? Nonsense.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know what in the world they were thinking and sending all those weapons to Mexico.
And the Fast and the Furious scandal is just one of many that have seriously embarrassed the American government. Now, perhaps Mitt's hardline stance on issues like guns, immigration, and drugs becomes more clear. Because even though his father was born in Chihuahua, Mitt surely must want to distance himself from the region. Because the region is totally fucked up. And it's not the first time that this has been the Romney strategy either. When his father ran for president, both his citizenship and his Mormon colony's polygamist roots were called into question. And his run for the White House didn't last too long. But Mitt Romney has to deal with his family's polygamist past, kidnapping, drug wars, and, in the extreme case of Ervil LeBaron, crazy Mormon blood atonement. Now, having close familial ties to all of this shit does not a good presidential candidate make. You know, what do you think, being on the front lines of this, what do you think are some of the solutions to these problems?
Looking at it from a perspective of someone living here, we say, well, why don't they legalize it in the United States and cut out all the violence in Mexico?
Sure.
As long as you have the swimming pool over there, this is going to be the diving board.
So as we began our long drive back to the border, I had lots of time to think about what we'd seen in Chihuahua. I thought about the LeBarons and their war against the narcos, the kidnapping, the murders, and the lengths they have to go to protect themselves every day. I also thought about what Kelly Romney had said about the US being the swimming pool and Mexico being the diving board, and how similar all of this is to America's history with outlawing alcohol. So we're just approaching the border here, back into America. Feels like about a year has passed since we were here last. As we were driving here from Chihuahua, I was thinking, how prohibition in America led to the rise of the mob, the Al Capones, the Lucky Lucianos. Our war on drugs, our prohibition against drugs, has caused the same thing. You see it down here. It's the sort of blunt edge of the hammer. It's the rule of the thug. You have $200 assassins. And as long as there's prohibition, it's going to continue. The war on drugs is a failure. There's never been more drugs in America, and they've never been cheaper or better or higher quality. And as we sat for hours at the border waiting to get back into America, I thought about the fact that Mitt Romney might just be the next president of the United States.
God bless America. Thanks, you guys.
Now, polygamy and kidnapping notwithstanding, if he wins, he's going to have some hard decisions to make about decriminalizing drugs and fixing our immigration problem. Because if he doesn't, Mexico, his Mormon brethren, and perhaps even his own flesh and blood are going to pay the price.